You know that feeling when you think you know everyone in your life? When you believe that certain people would never cross certain lines? Yeah, I thought that too. My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old and 6 months pregnant. This is the story of how I discovered that some people will do absolutely anything to get what they want, even if it means destroying the people who love them most. It was a Tuesday in April when everything fell apart. I was sitting in Dr. Martinez's office in downtown Denver, staring at the ultrasound screen showing my healthy baby girl, when my phone buzzed with a text that would change my life forever. I should back up a bit. I'm Sarah Thompson, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I'm a successful real estate agent specializing in luxury properties in the Denver area. Last year alone, I made $180,000 in commissions, which isn't bad for someone who started from nothing. My husband Jake works as a software engineer at a tech startup downtown, making about $95,000 annually. Together, we were doing well. Not rich, but comfortable enough to own a beautiful 4-bedroom house in Cherry Creek that we bought 3 years ago for $650,000. The house was everything I dreamed of since I was a little girl, living in my parents' cramped apartment in Aurora. Hardwood floors throughout, a gourmet kitchen with granite countertops, a master suite with a walk-in closet bigger than my childhood bedroom, and a backyard perfect for the children I'd always wanted. I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 3 years to save the down payment, shown houses on weekends while other people relaxed, networked at every real estate event in the city. That house represented everything I'd built from scratch. Jake and I met 5 years ago through my best friend since college, Emma Rodriguez. Emma and Jake had grown up together in the same neighborhood in Phoenix before Jake moved to Denver for work. When Emma visited me during spring break that year, she brought Jake along, saying we'd be perfect for each other. She was right. Jake was everything I'd been looking for. Intelligent, funny, ambitious, and most importantly, he seemed to genuinely care about my dreams and goals. I remember our first date like it was yesterday. Jake took me to this little Italian restaurant in Lodo called Barolo Grill. I was nervous because Emma had built him up so much, but within 10 minutes, I was completely at ease. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, listened intently when I talked about my goals of building my own real estate empire, and made me laugh until my sides hurt. When he walked me to my car that night, he said, "Sarah, I hope this is the first of many nights together." It was cheesy, but his sincerity made it perfect. Emma was like the sister I never had. We met freshman year at University of Colorado Boulder, where I studied business and she studied psychology. She was there for me through my parents' messy divorce when I was 21, through my struggles to build my real estate career, through every heartbreak and triumph. When I got my real estate license and closed my first sale, Emma was the one who helped me celebrate with champagne and Chinese takeout in my tiny studio apartment. When Jake and I got engaged 2 years ago, Emma was my maid of honor, helping me plan every detail of our wedding at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park. When we found out I was pregnant 4 months ago, she was the first person I called after Jake. "Oh my God, Sarah," she'd screamed into the phone. "I'm going to be an aunt. This is the best news ever." She'd driven over immediately with ice cream and pregnancy books, staying up until midnight talking about baby names and nursery themes. Her excitement seemed genuine. Her joy for my happiness appeared real. Emma had always struggled more than me professionally. After college, she bounced between different therapy and counseling positions, never quite finding her niche. She worked at a nonprofit helping at-risk teens, then moved to a private practice doing family counseling, then tried working for the state providing mental health services. She made decent money, around $50,000 annually, but she always seemed envious of Jake's and my combined success. Not in a mean way, I thought, more like she was motivated by what we'd achieved together. She'd often comment on our house when she visited. "God, Sarah, this place is incredible. You guys are so lucky." Or when we'd go out to dinner at expensive restaurants, "Must be nice to not have to look at the right side of the menu." I always brushed it off as harmless friend banter. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to the undertone of resentment that colored these comments. Emma lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, about 20 minutes from our house. The building was old, with thin walls and no air conditioning. Her apartment was maybe 600 square feet, with a galley kitchen and a bathroom so small you could barely turn around in it. She paid $1,200 a month for what I paid $800 for in mortgage payments, but the difference in quality was stark. She came over at least twice a week for dinner, and Jake genuinely seemed to enjoy her company. They'd often stay up late talking about books, movies, philosophy. Intellectual conversations that I sometimes felt too tired to join after long days showing properties to demanding clients. I was happy they got along so well. Having your husband and best friend like each other felt like winning the lottery. I remember one evening in particular, about 8 months ago, when I'd fallen asleep on the couch while they were discussing some documentary about artificial intelligence. I woke up around midnight to find them still talking, their heads close together over Jake's laptop, looking at something on the screen. When they noticed I was awake, they both seemed startled, like they'd been caught doing something wrong. "Sorry, babe," Jake had said quickly. "We got carried away talking about this new AI program. We didn't mean to keep you up." Emma had gathered her things unusually quickly that night, saying she had an early appointment the next morning. I thought it was odd because she'd never been in a hurry to leave before, but I was too tired to think much about it. But that Tuesday in April, sitting in that doctor's office, looking at my baby's perfect profile on the ultrasound monitor, everything I thought I knew about my life exploded. The text was from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who lived next door and had become like a grandmother to me since we moved in. Mrs. Chen was a retired teacher who kept beautiful gardens and always waved when she saw me coming and going. She'd been incredibly excited about the pregnancy, often bringing me homemade soup and asking about baby preparations. "Sarah? Honey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know. I saw Emma leaving your house this afternoon around 2 p.m. She seemed to have a key. I wouldn't normally mention it, but Jake's car was in the driveway, too. And I know you said you had a doctor's appointment today. I hope everything is okay." My heart stopped. Jake was supposed to be at work. I had specifically told both of them about my appointment because Jake felt terrible he couldn't come due to a crucial project deadline. His startup was launching a new software product, and he'd been working 12-hour days for weeks. Emma had offered to come with me, but I'd insisted I was fine going alone to what was supposed to be a routine checkup. So, why was Emma at my house when Jake was supposedly at work? And why did she have a key? I'd never given her one. Jake and I had discussed giving spare keys to trusted people, but we decided against it, preferring to hide one in a lockbox for emergencies. I tried calling Jake immediately, straight to voicemail. His cheerful recorded message, the one that said, "Hi, you've reached Jake Thompson. I'm probably in a meeting or writing code, but leave a message and I'll get back to you," sounded mocking now. Then I called Emma. The same result. Voicemail with her professional therapist voice. "You've reached Emma Rodriguez. I'm either with a client or away from my phone, but your call is important to me. Please leave a detailed message." I drove home from the doctor's office in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The 20-minute drive felt like hours. I kept telling myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe Jake had gotten sick and come home early. Maybe Emma had stopped by to check on him. Maybe Mrs. Chen was mistaken about the timing or what she'd seen. But deep in my gut, I knew something was terribly wrong. There was an ice-cold feeling in my stomach that had nothing to do with pregnancy nausea. I pulled into our driveway at 3:47 p.m. Jake's silver Honda Civic was there, just as Mrs. Chen had said. Emma's blue Toyota Camry was parked across the street, positioned so it wouldn't be immediately visible from our front windows. The placement looked deliberate, like she was trying to be discreet. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, trying to gather the courage to go inside my own house. My house, where I paid the mortgage, where I'd chosen every piece of furniture, where I'd been planning to raise my daughter. When I finally did get out, I noticed something else. The curtains in our bedroom window were drawn, which was unusual for the middle of the day. I always left them open to let in natural light. I could hear voices from upstairs as soon as I opened the front door. Jake's voice and Emma's voice coming from our bedroom. Our bedroom where I'd spent the morning organizing baby clothes before heading to my appointment, where I'd laid out the tiny onesies and sleepers while imagining dressing my daughter in them. I kicked off my heels and walked upstairs as quietly as possible, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they'd hear it. The voices became clearer as I approached our room, and what I heard made my blood run cold. "She's going to find out eventually," Emma was saying, her voice filled with anxiety. "I can't keep pretending everything is normal when she talks about nursery plans and baby names, when she shows me pictures from her appointments and asks me to feel the baby kick." "I know," Jake replied, and his voice sounded different than it did when he talked to me. Softer, more intimate. "But the timing is so complicated with the pregnancy. If we tell her now, she's 6 months along. The stress could affect the baby." "If we tell her now, what? She'll be upset?" "Jake, she's going to be upset no matter when we tell her. At least if we do it now, we can start our life together without all this guilt eating at us." Our life together. The words hit me like a physical blow. What if she tries to make things difficult? With the divorce? I mean, she makes good money, Sarah does. What if she fights for the house? What if she tries to get alimony? Emma's laugh was bitter. She won't. I know Sarah better than anyone. She's too proud for messy legal battles. She'll want to handle everything quietly and move on with her dignity intact. Besides, she makes more money than you do. She'd probably have to pay you alimony if anything. "Still," Jake said, and I could hear the worry in his voice. "The house is worth a lot. Even half would be enough for us to get a place together, start fresh." "We'll figure it out," Emma said, her voice becoming softer, more seductive. "We love each other, Jake. That has to count for something." I stood there in my own hallway, 6 months pregnant with what I'd thought was our planned and wanted child, listening to my husband and best friend plan their future together while discussing the best strategy to discard me like an inconvenient obstacle. I could have confronted them right then. I could have burst through that door and demanded explanations, screamed at them, thrown things. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was strategic thinking, but I quietly went back downstairs, put my shoes on, and left the house. I drove to the Starbucks downtown where I often met clients, ordered a decaf latte with shaking hands, and sat in a corner booth trying to process what I'd just heard. My husband and best friend were having an affair. They were planning to leave me. They were discussing my reaction like I was a business problem to be managed. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, like someone had reached into my chest and torn something vital out. These were the two people I trusted most in the world, the two people I'd shared my deepest fears and biggest dreams with. Emma knew I'd always been terrified of abandonment because of my parents' divorce when I was young. She knew how hard I'd worked to build stability in my life, how much the idea of family meant to me. Jake knew I'd built my entire adult life around creating the stable family I'd never had as a child, and they were planning to destroy all of it. I sat in that Starbucks for 3 hours, crying quietly into my latte and trying to understand how I'd missed the signs. How long had this been going on? Was the baby even planned by Jake, or had he just gone along with it while already knowing he wanted to be with Emma? Had Emma been pretending to be excited about my pregnancy while secretly resenting it as an obstacle to their relationship? The questions multiplied faster than I could process them. Every memory from the past months took on new meaning. Jake working late more frequently. Emma asking about my schedule whenever she called, always seeming to know when Jake would be home. Both of them arriving together at restaurants sometimes, claiming they'd run into each other on the way. I called in sick to work for the rest of the week, telling my assistant I had pregnancy complications. It wasn't entirely a lie. The stress was making me physically sick. I threw up twice on Wednesday and couldn't keep food down on Thursday. My assistant, Maria, was concerned and offered to handle my client calls and showings. I spent those days playing detective in my own life, looking for clues I'd missed, evidence of the betrayal that had been happening right under my nose. I checked our cell phone records online. Jake and Emma had been texting constantly for months. Not just friendly messages, but multiple texts throughout every single day. On some days, there were over 50 texts between them. How had I not noticed Jake constantly on his phone? Actually, now that I thought about it, I had noticed. He'd started taking his phone to the bathroom, charging it on his side of the bed instead of in the kitchen where we'd always charged our phones together. I looked through Jake's credit card statements, something I rarely did since we kept our finances mostly separate. Charges at hotels in downtown Denver on days when he'd told me he was working late. The Marriott, the Hyatt, the Curtis Hotel, expensive places for lunch meetings or client calls. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to, places like Fruition and Mercantile, upscale spots where dinner for two would easily cost $200. The most damning charge was at a jewelry store called Trice Jewelers for $1,200 just 3 weeks ago. When I called pretending to be confirming a purchase, they told me it was for a white gold necklace with diamonds. I'd never received any jewelry from Jake. Not for my birthday, not for our anniversary, not for Christmas. But apparently, someone had. I drove by Emma's apartment building Thursday morning and saw Jake's car parked there at 11 a.m. on a day when he should have been at work. I sat across the street for 2 hours, watching. At 1:15 p.m., Jake emerged from her building, looking relaxed and satisfied. He stretched like someone who'd just woken up, checked his phone, and drove away in the direction of his office. The most devastating discovery came when I accessed our joint savings account online. Jake had been transferring money, small amounts, $200 to $300 at a time, to an account I didn't recognize. Over 6 months, he'd moved nearly $8,000 of our money that we'd been saving for the baby, for her college fund, for our future as a family. When I called the bank pretending to confirm the transfers, they told me the receiving account was at a different bank entirely, opened 3 months ago. 3 months ago was when Emma had mentioned she was finally getting her finances organized, opening new accounts to better manage her money. By Friday, I had a complete picture of their betrayal. This wasn't a recent development or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated, long-term affair that had been going on for at least 6 months, probably longer. They'd been planning their exit strategy while I'd been planning our daughter's nursery. I spent the weekend in a strange state of calm. I organized all the evidence I'd gathered into files on my laptop. I made copies of everything: credit card statements, bank records, phone bills, photos of Jake's car at Emma's apartment. I researched divorce lawyers and read about Colorado's divorce laws until my eyes burned. I even started looking at smaller houses and apartments, places where a single mother with a good income could make a fresh start. I found several possibilities: a townhouse in Highlands Ranch, a condo in Cherry Creek, a small house in Wash Park. All more modest than what I was used to, but manageable on my income alone. On Monday morning, I made appointments with 3 different divorce attorneys. The first, Robert Martinez, seemed overwhelmed by the amount of evidence I'd brought and kept asking if I was sure I wanted to proceed. The second, Jennifer Walsh, was more encouraging but focused primarily on financial settlements. The third was Patricia Walsh, no relation to Jennifer, a no-nonsense family law specialist with 20 years of experience and a reputation for protecting her clients' interests. "Sarah," Patricia said during our first consultation, looking over the evidence I'd brought, "this is one of the most thoroughly documented cases I've seen. Your husband has essentially handed you everything you need for a very favorable divorce settlement. Colorado is an equitable distribution state, meaning marital assets get divided fairly, but not necessarily equally. With evidence of Jake's affair and financial deception, Patricia was confident I could retain the house, the majority of our savings, and secure substantial child support. The key is timing," she explained. "We need to file before he has a chance to hide or spend more marital assets, and we need to document everything about his current financial situation before he potentially changes jobs or reduces his income to avoid support payments." Patricia's office was in a high-rise downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes, wearing an impeccably tailored suit. Everything about her radiated competence and authority. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt like I had someone on my side. That's when I learned something that would change everything. Sarah, I need to ask you something important, Patricia said, reviewing our financial documents. Did you and Jake sign a prenuptial agreement before marriage? No, I replied. We discussed it briefly, but decided against it. Jake said it seemed like planning for failure, and honestly, I was so in love, I didn't want to think about anything going wrong. I remembered that conversation. It was about 2 months before our wedding, and one of my real estate colleagues had mentioned that she'd insisted on a prenup before marrying her second husband. When I brought it up to Jake that night, he'd laughed. Sarah, baby, we're going to be together forever. Why would we need a contract to prove our love? Those things are for people who don't trust each other. Patricia nodded grimly. In that case, you're entitled to half of all marital assets, including the house appreciation, his retirement contributions during the marriage, and anything else acquired during your union. Given his documented infidelity and financial deception, I'm confident we can get you more than half. We spent 2 hours going through every aspect of my financial life. The house, purchased for $650,000 3 years ago, was now worth approximately $750,000, according to recent comparable sales in our neighborhood. Jake's 401k had grown by about $40,000 during our marriage. We had $15,000 in joint savings before Jake's secret transfers and about $8,000 in checking. But the biggest asset was my business. I'd built my real estate career from nothing, establishing relationships with luxury home builders, developing a reputation for high-end properties, creating a referral network that generated steady income. None of that was marital property since I'd started building it before our marriage, but the income it generated was part of our marital financial picture. Your business assets remain yours, Patricia explained, but your income during the marriage is considered when calculating support obligations. Given that you out-earn your husband significantly, he could potentially ask for spousal support. The idea of paying Jake alimony after what he'd done made me physically sick. I left Patricia's office with a plan and a timeline. I would confront Jake and Emma in exactly 1 week, giving Patricia time to prepare all the preliminary divorce documents. I wanted to control the narrative, to choose the time and place for this confrontation, but I also wanted them to sweat a little. That week, I acted completely normal. I made Jake his favorite dinners: barbecue chicken with roasted vegetables, homemade lasagna, grilled salmon with asparagus. I included Emma in text chains about baby shower plans, sending her Pinterest boards of nursery themes and asking her opinion on gift registries. I asked Jake's opinion on paint colors for the nursery, showing him sample cards and discussing whether we should go with lavender or mint green. I let them think they were successfully deceiving me while I prepared for their destruction. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. While they were planning how to minimize the damage when they told me about their affair, I was planning how to maximize the damage when I revealed I already knew. I decided to tell them at Emma's apartment. I wanted them to feel trapped and exposed in their own den of deception, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal. I texted Emma on Friday afternoon, "Hey, I have a surprise for both of you. Can you make sure Jake is at your place tomorrow around 7 p.m.? I want to celebrate some exciting news with my 2 favorite people." Emma responded within minutes. "Of course. We'll both be here. Can't wait to hear your news. Is everything okay with the baby?" "Everything's perfect," I replied. "See you tomorrow." If she only knew how perfect things were about to become. Saturday evening, I dressed carefully, not to look pretty, but to look powerful. Black maternity dress that accentuated my bump, but also conveyed seriousness. My best jewelry, including the diamond earrings I'd bought myself when I closed my biggest sale last year. Professional makeup that would photograph well if things got dramatic. I wanted to look like someone who was in control, someone who wouldn't be easily dismissed or manipulated. I drove to Emma's apartment building, my heart pounding but my mind crystal clear. I'd rehearsed this conversation dozens of times. I knew exactly what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I had copies of all my evidence in my purse, along with Patricia's business card. Emma buzzed me up, and I could hear laughter from inside her apartment as I climbed the stairs. Jake's laugh. The laugh I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago now turned into something that made my skin crawl. Emma opened the door with a huge smile, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Red silk that looked expensive, definitely not something she could typically afford on her therapist's salary. "Sarah, you look amazing. Come in, come in." Jake brought wine, but obviously just for us. I made sure we have sparkling cider for you. How thoughtful of her to remember that pregnant women shouldn't drink alcohol while she was sleeping with the father of my unborn child. Jake was sitting on Emma's couch, looking relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. He jumped up to hug me when I walked in, and I noticed he was wearing the cologne I'd bought him for Christmas, the expensive Tom Ford one that cost $150. "Hey, beautiful. Emma said you have exciting news?" I hugged him back, breathing in that cologne and feeling nothing but disgust. "I do have news. Why don't we all sit down?" We arranged ourselves in Emma's small living room. Jake and Emma sat close together on the couch, closer than friends typically sit, I noticed now. Their knees were almost touching, and Emma kept glancing at Jake with little smiles. I took the chair across from them, placing my purse carefully at my feet. Emma's apartment looked different than I remembered. There were new touches that seemed expensive. A cashmere throw blanket over the back of the couch, fresh flowers on the coffee table, candles that smelled like they came from an upscale boutique. Jake's influence, no doubt, funded by money he'd stolen from our joint savings. "So," Emma said, settling in with her wine glass, "what's the big news? Don't keep us in suspense. Is it something about the baby?" I smiled at both of them, taking my time, enjoying their anticipation. "Well, it's actually about the three of us, about our relationships and our future together." Jake and Emma exchanged a quick glance. Almost too quick to catch, but I was watching for it. "I've been doing some thinking about what's best for the baby," I continued. "About what kind of environment I want her to grow up in, what kind of people I want influencing her life." "That's smart," Emma said, her voice taking on her professional therapist tone. "Kids pick up on everything. It's so important to surround them with positive, honest people who will be good role models." Honest people. The irony was incredible. "Exactly," I agreed. "Honest people, loyal people, people who can be trusted." The room got very quiet. I could see Jake's jaw tense slightly and Emma's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. "Sarah," Jake said carefully, "is everything okay? You seem different tonight." "I'm perfectly fine, Jake. In fact, I haven't felt this clear-headed in months." I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope, placing it on Emma's coffee table between us with a soft thud. "I wanted to share some interesting things I've discovered recently, about trust, about loyalty, about the people closest to us." Emma's wine glass froze completely. "What kind of things?" I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately, and spread out printed copies of text message records, credit card statements, and hotel receipts like I was dealing cards. "Well, for example, I learned that my husband has been staying at the downtown Marriott quite frequently over the past few months. Usually on days when he told me he was working late at the office on his big software launch." Jake's face went completely white. Emma set down her wine glass with trembling hands, and I noticed a few drops spilled onto her expensive-looking coffee table. "And I discovered that my best friend has been texting my husband an average of 47 times per day for the past 4 months. That seems like a lot for casual friendship, don't you think?" The silence in the room was deafening. I could hear Emma's upstairs neighbor walking around, could hear traffic from the street below, could hear my own heart beating steadily in my chest. "Sarah?" Jake started, but I held up my hand. "Oh, I'm not done yet. I also learned that someone has been transferring money from our joint savings account, money we'd saved for our daughter, into an account that I don't have access to. $8,000 to be exact." Emma made a small sound, like a wounded animal. "But the most interesting thing I discovered," I continued, standing up slowly and placing my hands protectively over my belly, "was a conversation that took place in my own bedroom last Tuesday while I was at my prenatal appointment. A conversation about how to time your big announcement, how to manage my reaction, and how to start your life together with minimal complications." Jake buried his face in his hands. Emma started crying. Not pretty, delicate tears, but ugly, desperate sobs that made her mascara run in black streaks down her cheeks. "How long?" I asked, my voice steady and calm. "Sarah, please," Emma choked out. "It's not what you think." "How long?" Jake looked up at me, his eyes red and filled with what might have been regret or might have been fear of consequences. 8 months. 8 months. My daughter was due in 3 months, which meant their affair had started right around the time Jake and I had decided to start trying for a baby. Before I'd even gotten pregnant, before we'd had those long conversations about whether we were ready, about what kind of parents we wanted to be, about how much we wanted this child. So when I called you, Emma, crying happy tears because the pregnancy test was positive, you were already sleeping with him. Emma couldn't even look at me. Her crying got louder, more desperate. "Sarah, I never meant for this to happen." "You never meant for what to happen? You never meant to seduce my husband? You never meant to help him steal money from our savings account? You never meant to plan your future together in my bedroom while I was getting an ultrasound of the baby you've been pretending to be excited about?" Jake stood up, reaching toward me, but I stepped back. "Sarah, please, let us explain." "Explain what? That you fell in love? That it just happened? That you couldn't help yourselves?" My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care. "Let the neighbors hear. Do you want to explain why you let me plan our daughter's nursery while you were planning your escape? Do you want to explain why you let me include Emma in baby shower plans while you were both calculating how to minimize the damage to your precious relationship?" "We were trying to find the right time to tell you," Jake said weakly. "The right time," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "And when would that have been? After our daughter was born? After I'd gone through labor and delivery thinking I had a supportive husband and best friend? Or maybe you were planning to wait until she was older so she could remember the moment her father abandoned her for her Aunt Emma." Emma was crying so hard she could barely speak. "Sarah, I love him. We love each other. I know it's terrible timing with the baby, but we can't help how we feel." "Love," I said, tasting the word like poison. "You love him so much that you were willing to destroy your best friend to have him. You love him so much that you helped him steal from his pregnant wife. That's not love, Emma. That's greed and selfishness dressed up in romantic language." I started gathering up the papers from the coffee table, taking my time. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice returning to calm. "Jake, you have until Sunday to move out of our house. Take whatever clothes and personal items you need, but everything else stays. The house is in both our names, but I'll be keeping it." "Sarah, we should talk about this rationally," Jake said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Divide things fairly. Work something out that's good for everyone, especially the baby." "Fairly?" I laughed, and the sound was harsh even to my own ears. "You think fairness is relevant here? You want to talk about rational division of assets after you spent 8 months lying to me and stealing from me?" I turned to Emma, who was still sobbing into her hands. "And you, 20 years of friendship, and you threw it all away for what? A man who was willing to cheat on his pregnant wife? Do you really think he's going to be faithful to you?" Emma looked up at me through her tears, mascara smeared across her cheeks. "Sarah, he loves me. We connect on a level that what? That we didn't?" I shook my head. "Emma, if he could lie to me for 8 months, smile at me every morning, make love to me while thinking about you, what makes you think he won't do the same to you someday?" The truth of that statement seemed to hit both of them simultaneously. Jake looked at Emma with something that might have been doubt. Emma looked at Jake with something that might have been realization. "You deserve each other," I said, heading toward the door. "You really do. 2 people who can betray someone who loved them unconditionally, who can look that person in the eye every day while planning her destruction. You're perfect for each other." I paused at the door, turning back one last time. "Oh, and Jake? My lawyer will be in touch Monday morning. Patricia Walsh. You might want to write that down. I hope the 8 months of sneaking around was worth what it's going to cost you." I walked out of that apartment and didn't look back, even when I heard Emma call my name and Jake curse loudly enough for the whole building to hear. In my car, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not for Jake, Not for Emma, but for the naive woman I'd been that morning, who still believed some people were fundamentally good. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, property division, and preparing for single motherhood. Patricia Walsh proved to be worth every penny of her $400 per hour fee. Jake's documented infidelity and financial deception made our case remarkably straightforward. Colorado's equitable distribution laws worked heavily in my favor. I kept the house, worth $750,000, with Jake signing over his half in exchange for me taking over the full mortgage. I retained our entire savings account since Jake had already stolen from it. I got to keep both cars since I'd been making the payments on both, and Jake was ordered to pay $1,200 per month in child support based on his current salary. Most satisfying of all, I got to keep my business. All my real estate contacts, my client relationships, my reputation, everything I'd built independently remained mine. Jake got his clothes, his personal items, his laptop, and half the furniture. Emma got Jake for whatever that was worth. My daughter Lily was born on a sunny October morning, 3 months after my divorce was finalized. She was perfect. 8 pounds, 2 ounces of pure beauty with my dark hair and what the nurses said were Jake's green eyes, though I preferred to think they were just beautiful eyes that belonged to her alone. I felt only joy looking at her, no pain about her absent father. She was mine, created by me, and she would be raised with my values of honesty, loyalty, and self-respect. Jake asked to be at the hospital for the birth. I said no. He asked to visit in the first few days. I said no. My lawyer had prepared a custody arrangement that gave him standard visitation rights once Lily was older, but for the first few months, I wanted peace to bond with my daughter without his drama. Emma sent flowers to the hospital with a card that read, "Congratulations, Sarah. I hope someday you can forgive me." I had the nurses donate them to other patients who might actually appreciate them. 6 months after Lily was born, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Jake and Emma had broken up. Apparently, the stress of the divorce, the financial burden of child support, and the reality of their relationship had taken its toll. Jake was living in a studio apartment downtown, working the same job for the same salary, but now supporting 2 households. Emma had moved back to Phoenix to live with her parents. Neither of them had expected the financial reality of their choices. Jake hadn't realized that $95,000 per year doesn't go very far when you're paying $1,200 per month in child support, rent on your own place in expensive Denver, and trying to maintain the lifestyle you'd grown accustomed to while married to someone who made good money. Emma apparently hadn't realized that dating a broke, bitter, divorced father wasn't as romantic as dating a married man with his wife's money supplementing his lifestyle. According to our mutual friend Lisa, Emma had expected Jake to get half of everything in the divorce. When that didn't happen, when Jake ended up with basically nothing while still owing substantial child support, the dream of their comfortable life together evaporated quickly. I heard Jake tried to get his child support reduced, claiming financial hardship. Patricia Walsh shut that down quickly, pointing out that his financial hardship was self-inflicted and that his daughter's needs took priority over his comfort. "Your Honor," Patricia had argued in court, "Mr. Thompson chose to engage in an extramarital affair that destroyed his marriage. He chose to transfer marital assets to fund this affair. He chose to prioritize his relationship with his mistress over his responsibilities to his pregnant wife. The financial consequences of those choices cannot now be used to reduce his support obligations to his child." The judge agreed, maintaining Jake's support payments at the original level. Meanwhile, my life flourished. Lily was an easy, happy baby who slept well and rarely fussed. She had the sweetest disposition, always smiling, reaching for everything with curious little hands. I could see intelligence in her bright eyes, and I was determined to nurture that intelligence while teaching her to be strong and independent. My real estate business grew dramatically, partly because I was more motivated than ever to build security for my daughter, and partly because my story had gotten around Denver's professional community. Women, particularly other mothers, admired how I'd handled the betrayal with dignity and strength. They went out of their way to refer clients to me. Sarah handled her divorce like a boss, I overheard one client telling another. She didn't get bitter or crazy. She just took care of business and moved on. That's the kind of person I want representing me in a real estate deal. My income jumped to $220,000 in Lily's first year, and I was on track for $280,000 the following year. I hired an assistant, Maria, who became invaluable in managing my schedule so I could spend more time with Lily. I also hired a part-time nanny, Mrs. Rodriguez, who came 3 days a week so I could show properties and meet with clients. I refinanced the house at a lower interest rate, built a beautiful nursery for Lily with hand-painted murals of fairy tale castles, and created a college fund that I contributed $1,000 to every month. Everything I dreamed of providing for my daughter was becoming reality, and I was doing it entirely on my own terms. The loneliness I'd feared after the divorce never materialized. I was too busy building a life, too focused on Lily, too excited about my work to feel sorry for myself. I joined a group for professional single mothers called Mile High Moms, made new friends who shared my values and priorities, and discovered that I genuinely enjoyed my independence. For the first time in my adult life, every decision was mine alone. What to have for dinner, how to spend weekends, where to go on vacation, how to decorate the house, everything reflected my choices and preferences. It was incredibly liberating. When Lily turned 1, Jake requested his first official visit. One supervised afternoon at my house, during which he could spend time with his daughter. I agreed, not for his sake, but because I wanted Lily to have the opportunity to know her father if he proved capable of being a positive presence in her life. He arrived on time, looking older and more worn than I remembered. His hair was longer and unkempt. He'd lost weight, and his clothes looked like he'd slept in them. He brought an expensive toy, a musical learning center that probably cost $150, that Lily ignored in favor of the cardboard box it came in. He seemed nervous, unsure how to interact with a 1-year-old, awkward in the house he'd once shared with me. I watched from the kitchen while he sat on the floor trying to engage Lily, who was more interested in exploring the house than paying attention to this stranger. "She's beautiful, Sarah," he said when I brought him coffee. "She looks like you, but with my eyes." "She looks like herself," I corrected. "She's her own person." For 2 hours, Jake tried to connect with Lily. He read her books, played with toys, made silly faces to get her to laugh. Lily was polite but uninterested, the way toddlers are with people they don't know well. She kept looking to me for reassurance, staying close to my legs whenever Jake tried to pick her up. "Sarah," he said as I walked him out after his visit, "I want you to know that I realize what I gave up, what I lost. You and Lily, you were my family, and I destroyed that for something that wasn't even real." I looked at him, this man I'd once loved more than anything, and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not satisfaction, just nothing. "Jake," I said quietly, "you made your choices. I've made mine. What matters now is Lily and whether you can be a good father to her. Everything else is in the past." He started to say something else, but I was already closing the door. I had dinner to make, a business to run, a daughter to raise. I didn't have time for regrets or what-ifs. Jake's visits became monthly, then bi-weekly as Lily got older and more comfortable with him. He was never going to be Father of the Year, but he seemed to genuinely care about her well-being, and that was enough for me. I maintained strict boundaries. Visits were always at my house, never overnight, and I was always present. But for Lily's sake, I was civil and cooperative. Emma never contacted me again after those hospital flowers. I blocked her on all social media, deleted her number from my phone, and asked mutual friends not to share information about her with me. She ceased to exist in my life the day I walked out of her apartment. 2 years after that devastating confrontation, I'm happier than I've ever been. I own my home outright after paying off the mortgage early with my increased income. I have a thriving business that I'm passionate about, a healthy daughter who brings me joy every day, and genuine friendships with people who value loyalty and honesty. Lily is walking now, talking in small sentences, and showing signs of being as determined and independent as her mother. She sees Jake once a week, and while I'll never trust him with overnight visits until she's much older, their relationship seems to be developing naturally. That's enough for me. I started dating again recently. Nothing serious, just casual dinners with interesting men I meet through work or friends. I'm in no rush to remarry, but I'm open to the possibility of finding someone worthy of the life I've built for myself and my daughter. Sometimes people ask if I regret how I handled everything, if I wish I'd tried to work things out, gone to counseling, fought for my marriage. The answer is always no. Jake and Emma showed me exactly who they were when they thought I wasn't looking. They showed me they were capable of elaborate deception, financial theft, and cold calculation about my emotional destruction. Those aren't flaws you can fix with therapy. Those are fundamental character defects that would have continued to poison my life if I'd stayed. Instead, they gave me the greatest gift possible. They forced me to discover my own strength. They forced me to learn that I could not only survive betrayal, but thrive after it. They forced me to build a life that was entirely my own, based on my values and priorities, without compromise or deception. My daughter will grow up with a mother who doesn't accept betrayal, who values herself enough to walk away from toxic people, who builds her own security instead of depending on others. She'll learn that love should be based on respect and honesty, not convenience and opportunity. Sometimes, late at night when Lily is sleeping peacefully in her crib and I'm working on client contracts in my home office, I think about that Tuesday in April when everything changed. That moment when Mrs. Chen's text shattered my illusions and forced me to see the truth. I'm grateful for that text. I'm grateful for my neighbor's courage in reaching out. I'm grateful that I discovered the affair before Lily was born, before I'd wasted more years building a life with people who saw me as an obstacle to their happiness rather than someone deserving of love and loyalty. Most of all, I'm grateful that Jake and Emma underestimated me so completely. They planned my destruction while assuming I'd be too heartbroken, too weak, too dependent to fight back effectively. They thought I would crumble, beg Jake to come back, accept their betrayal as something I'd somehow deserved. They were wrong about everything. I wasn't too weak. I was stronger than they could imagine. I wasn't too dependent. I was more independent than they realized. And I wasn't too heartbroken to think strategically about protecting myself and my unborn daughter. Their betrayal didn't destroy me. It freed me. And that's the real ending to this story. Not revenge, not bitterness, not endless legal battles, just freedom. The freedom to build exactly the life I wanted, with exactly the people who deserve to be in it. Jake and Emma can have each other or not. They can struggle financially or find a way to make it work. They can regret their choices or convince themselves they did the right thing. I don't care anymore. I have a daughter who adores me, a business that fulfills me, and a future that belongs entirely to us. That's worth more than any relationship built on lies and deception could ever be. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living so well that the people who tried to hurt you become completely irrelevant to your happiness. And that's exactly what I've done. Update 6 months later. A lot of people have asked for updates, so here's where things stand now. Lily just turned 2 and is absolutely thriving. She's talking in full sentences, has her father's green eyes, but thankfully my stubborn streak, and brings me more joy every single day. She started asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue, Mama? Where do birds go at night? And I love watching her curiosity about the world. My business hit $320,000 in revenue last year, and I just hired a second assistant. I'm expanding into commercial real estate and seriously considering opening my own brokerage within the next 2 years. I've saved enough money to make the transition, and several other successful agents have expressed interest in joining me. Financial independence feels incredible. But more than that, I love knowing I built this empire entirely through my own hard work and integrity. Jake has been consistent with his visitation schedule, which I appreciate for Lily's sake. He seems to have matured somewhat. He shows up on time, brings age-appropriate toys, and doesn't try to undermine my parenting decisions. He's learned how to change diapers, make simple snacks, and read bedtime stories. I maintain strict boundaries, but I can see that he genuinely loves Lily, even if he's not capable of being the father she deserves full-time. Child support continues to come automatically, and I've put every penny of it directly into Lily's college fund. I heard through the grapevine that Emma moved back to Denver a few months ago and is working at a community mental health center downtown. Apparently, living with her parents in Phoenix at 30 years old was harder on her pride than she'd expected. I genuinely hope she's getting her life together and learning from her mistakes, but I have no desire for contact. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. The most surprising development is that I've started dating someone seriously. Michael is a pediatric surgeon I met through Lily's pediatrician when she had to get stitches after falling off her playground equipment. He's divorced with 2 kids of his own, a 7-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter who spend every other weekend with him. He's emotionally mature, financially stable, and most importantly, he understands that my daughter comes first in all decisions. "Sarah," he told me on our 3rd date, "I admire how protective you are of Lily. A good mother should put her child first. Any man who doesn't understand that isn't worth your time." We've been seeing each other for 8 months now, taking things very slowly. His children have met Lily a few times in group settings, park playdates, family restaurants, the zoo, and they seem to get along well. Michael has met Jake during a pickup, and while it was awkward, both men were civil for Lily's sake. What I love most about Michael is that our relationship feels like a true partnership. He has his own successful career, his own resources, his own ambitions. He doesn't need me to support him or complete him. He wants to be with me because he enjoys my company and respects who I am. We split expenses fairly, make decisions together, and support each other's goals without trying to control or change each other. I've also strengthened my relationships with my parents, who initially struggled to understand why I couldn't forgive Emma and work things out with Jake. My mother especially kept suggesting that I was being too harsh, that everyone makes mistakes, that family should forgive family. "Mom," I finally told her during one particularly frustrating conversation, what Jake and Emma did wasn't a mistake. It was 8 months of calculated deception. They didn't slip up once. They planned my humiliation and destruction while pretending to love me. I don't owe forgiveness to people who showed me such fundamental disrespect. Eventually, my parents came to understand my position, especially after seeing how well Lily and I were doing on our own. My father actually apologized for not supporting my decision initially. "Sarah," he said last Christmas, "I see how happy and successful you are now, and I realize you made the right choice. You're stronger than I gave you credit for, and Lily is lucky to have you as her mother." To everyone who messaged saying I was too harsh or should have tried to salvage my relationships with Jake and Emma, I respectfully disagree. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and believing them the first time saves you years of pain. I protected myself and my daughter from people who proved they couldn't be trusted with our well-being. Jake had every opportunity to be honest with me. If he'd fallen out of love, if he'd developed feelings for Emma, he could have talked to me before starting an affair. We could have ended our marriage with dignity and worked out custody arrangements that put Lily first. Instead, he chose deception, theft, and betrayal. Emma had every opportunity to step back from the situation. If she'd developed feelings for Jake, she could have distanced herself from our friendship until she'd sorted out her emotions. Instead, she chose to actively pursue a married man while pretending to support his pregnant wife. Those were conscious decisions that revealed their character. I don't regret protecting myself from people with such poor character. To everyone who shared similar stories or said my post helped them recognize toxic patterns in their own lives, thank you. We're stronger than we think we are, and we all deserve relationships built on honesty and respect. Life is good, really, truly good. And it started getting good the moment I stopped accepting less than I deserved. Final update. 3 years post-betrayal. 3 years post-betrayal, and I'm writing this from my new house. A gorgeous 6-bedroom in Cherry Hills Village that I bought entirely with cash from my real estate success. Lily loves having space to run around in the huge backyard, and I love knowing that every square foot belongs to us. I ended up opening my own brokerage, Thompson Premier Properties, 18 months ago. We specialize in luxury homes and have quickly become one of the most respected firms in Denver. I have 8 agents working with me now, and we're on track to close $50 million in sales this year. The success is beyond what I ever dreamed possible when I was starting out as a single agent. Jake remarried last year to someone from his work, a nice woman named Jennifer, who seems to understand the boundaries around Lily. I genuinely wish them well. He continues to be a decent father to Lily within our established boundaries. Weekly visits, some holidays, and now occasional overnight stays at his apartment since Lily is older and can communicate if anything makes her uncomfortable. What surprised me most is how little I think about Jake and Emma anymore. For the first year after the divorce, I was angry and hurt and spent too much mental energy on what they'd done to me. But as my life improved and I built something better than what I'd lost, they became increasingly irrelevant to my happiness. Emma reached out through a mutual friend last year, asking if we could meet for coffee to make peace. I declined, politely but firmly. I've made peace with what happened years ago, but that doesn't require maintaining relationships with people who prove they can't be trusted. Some people belong in your past, not your present or future. Michael and I got engaged 8 months ago after a 2-year courtship that felt right at every stage. He proposed at the Denver Botanic Gardens on a Sunday afternoon when all our kids were playing together. Lily, his son Marcus, and his daughter Sophia. Watching them laugh and chase each other while he got down on one knee felt like the perfect symbol of the blended family we're creating. We're planning a small wedding next spring, focusing more on the commitment we're making than on having a big party. Both of us have been married before. Both of us have learned what really matters in a relationship. We want a ceremony that celebrates our partnership and includes our children as the family we're becoming together. Lily adores Michael and has started calling him Mike Dad to distinguish him from First Dad Jake. She's incredibly smart and perceptive for a 3-year-old, asking questions like, "Why didn't you and First Dad stay married?" I've started giving her age-appropriate explanations about how sometimes adults stop being good partners for each other, but that doesn't mean they stop loving their children. For anyone going through something similar, it gets better. Not just bearable, but genuinely better. You discover strength you didn't know you had. You build a life that reflects your actual values instead of compromising them for people who don't respect them. You learn the difference between love that lifts you up and attachment that holds you back. The people who betray you do you a favor by showing you who they really are. Listen to them, believe them, and then build something beautiful without them. Most importantly, don't let their poor character make you doubt your own worth. The fact that they couldn't appreciate what they had says everything about them and nothing about you. I look at my life now, successful business, beautiful home, healthy daughter, loving relationship with a man who values honesty and commitment, and I realize that Jake and Emma's betrayal was the catalyst for everything good that followed. They thought they were destroying me, but they actually freed me to become the person I was meant to be. That's the real victory. Not that they lost something valuable when they lost me, though they did. Not that they ended up struggling while I prospered, though they did. The real victory is that I discovered I didn't need anyone else's validation or support to build an extraordinary life. I am enough. I always was enough. And now I have a daughter who will grow up knowing she's enough too, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. That's the legacy I want to leave from this whole experience. Not bitterness or anger, but the knowledge that we are all stronger and more capable than we realize. Sometimes we just need someone to force us to discover that strength. Jake and Emma did that for me, though I'm sure it wasn't their intention. For that, ironically, I'm grateful. Epilogue. 5 years later. It's been 5 years since that April day when Mrs. Chen's text changed my life forever. I'm writing this final update because so many people have followed this story and asked how everything turned out. Lily is now 6 years old and in first grade. She's brilliant, confident, and kind. Everything I hoped she would be. She has a relationship with Jake that works for everyone involved. He sees her every other weekend and on holidays, has never missed a support payment, and has actually become a better father as she's gotten older, and they can communicate more effectively. Michael and I have been married for 2 years now. We have 4 children between us. Lily, his 2 from his first marriage, and our son David, who was born last year. Our house is chaos most of the time, but it's the good kind of chaos that comes from a family that genuinely enjoys being together. Thompson Premier Properties is now one of the top 3 luxury real estate brokerages in Denver. We have 15 agents and are expanding into Colorado Springs next year. My personal income last year was over $400,000, and I've built a net worth that ensures Lily will never have to worry about financial security. But more than the money, I love the work. I help families find their dream homes, guide people through major life transitions, and build something meaningful every day. I never could have imagined this level of professional success when I was married to Jake, partly because I was more focused on our relationship than on my own growth, and partly because I didn't believe I was capable of this much. Jake seems to have found stability with Jennifer. They had a baby boy last year, and Lily enjoys being a big sister when she visits them. Jake actually thanked me recently for handling our divorce the way I did. "Sarah," he said during one of our brief conversations at Lily's school play, "I know I screwed up badly with you, but the way you handled everything, focusing on Lily, building your business, not trying to poison her against me, it gave us all a chance to create something healthier. I'm grateful for that." I don't know what happened to Emma, and I don't care. She's not part of this story anymore. The most important thing I've learned is that betrayal, while painful, can be a gift if you choose to see it that way. It forces you to examine your life, your relationships, your values. It strips away illusions and shows you what's real and what's not. I thought I needed Jake to be happy. I thought I needed Emma's friendship to feel complete. I thought the life we'd built together was the best I could hope for. I was wrong about all of it. The life I have now, built on honesty, hard work, and genuine partnerships, is better than anything I could have imagined when I was settling for less than I deserved. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. You just have to be brave enough to see it that way and strong enough to build something better from the wreckage. I did that. Anyone can do that. You are enough. You are stronger than you know. And you deserve people in your life who see your worth and honor it every single day. Don't settle for less. Ever. Thanks to everyone who followed this journey and shared their own stories. We're all more resilient than we realize. Keep building beautiful lives.